Hi, my name is Christina Finnegan, and this is my literacy inquiry. My question: could the implementation of a sustained silent reading program increase motivation for reading amongst my 8th grade students? The roots of my question. Currently, my 7th and 8th grade students are required to complete 30-minute reading logs daily in order to chart their silent reading at home. This has been mandated by my curriculum coordinator and superintendent, so I really don't have much of a choice, but it seems that the program is very inconsistent. I have students who complete their reading regularly, students who do not complete their reading at all, or students who forget to get their reading log signed for whatever reason. So I began to think about how I could incorporate silent reading into my own classroom. Also, I note here an increase in test preparation materials, especially nonfiction texts, with the onset of the Common Core, which also seem to be diminishing reading motivation in my classroom. Finally, I have a bit of a strange schedule. I see my students every other day for a block period, so this abnormal schedule got me thinking about how I could incorporate SSR into my classroom. Also, I see my homeroom for an additional 2 periods a week, so I thought that that might be possible with them in particular. Purpose, goals, and objectives. First and foremost, I'm going to need to load my classroom library with an array of adolescent novels, graphic novels, magazines, etc. My students absolutely love the Bluford series, which are available through purchase through Towson Press for $1, and I also registered for a donorschoose.org account, which I had been wanting to do, but this gave me a specific reason, so I've done that also. I also want to make my classroom technology fully accessible so that my students can access online texts if that is their choice. I also hope to create a warmer environment where students can relax and read comfortably. I'm going to need to convey a strong purpose, mindset, and the goals of SSR to my students. And finally, it is my hope to instill an intrinsic motivation and a love of reading in my 8th grade students. As far as the timeline is concerned, it is my hope to have this implemented by September of 2013. As I already noted, I really do need to spruce up my classroom library in order to make this happen. I found that when I let students bring books from home or the library or whatever it might be, often they're forgotten and my plans for SSR go by the wayside, or they have in the past. I'd like to begin with a motivation survey similar to Gambrell's. I found the interview component especially interesting, and I think that would work in particular with some of my students. I hope to begin SSR almost immediately so as to make it a regular part of our daily schedule. I also hope to replace our Do Now with the SSR, or traditional Do Now. So roughly 15 minutes per day, 3 times per week. Finally, I hope to evaluate the SSR program midway through the first marking period. Consider ideas of non-accountability and follow-up, which I will touch upon later on. But I also hope to interview students and see how motivation is being affected. Setting a clear purpose will be extremely important. Valerie Lee's article was extremely helpful in making this clear to me. Access, appeal, conducive environment, encouragement, staff training, non-accountability, follow-up activities, and also time to read are crucial. So I began seeing this SSR program as something a little bit more complex than I had viewed it in the past. Access and appeal will be extremely important. I definitely hope to convey an enthusiasm about the new books on my shelf, give students opportunities to read multiple genres from multiple sources, and personal choice will be encouraged. Conducive environment will also be very important, and this is something that my classroom definitely lacks at the moment. I definitely want to create a warmer environment to promote student buy-in. I want students to see reading as a time to kick back and relax. I'm also going to need to stress the importance of settling down quickly and smooth transitions out of SSR when when we do participate. And I definitely want to encourage student recommendations. Tacking onto that idea of encouragement, prior to this inquiry, I'd seen SSR, the teacher's role, that is, as being something where I would be modeling reading, good reading, in front of my classroom, or wherever I chose to sit for that matter. But this article made the teacher's role a little bit different, suggesting supporting students if they're stuck through conversations, making recommendations, genuinely getting to know your students and their interests in order to make strong recommendations. But again, less of this teacher sitting in front of the room modeling if that was not what the classroom needed. Two more essential components, non-accountability and follow-up activities. I have these together because they kind of almost seem to contradict one another. I have always recognized non-accountability as being a pillar of SSR. You'll see Pilgreen's quotation here. However, Lee's model also recommends follow-up activities. She recommends modeling a few, which I hope to do if this is a route I end up taking, making them choice-driven, and they can also be student-created. But again, I have questions about this follow-up activity component because I'm afraid that even if giving the students choice, it may deter them from, wanting to fully engage in their silent reading. Accompanying activities. With the nature of SSR, there will be limited formal activities with the exception of course, setting a strong purpose and these reading inventory surveys and interest surveys. Through this inquiry, I've really learned a lot about the process of SSR, the fact that it is more complex than I had recognized in the past. My first article was a bit difficult to understand, actually. Yoon, in his 3 decades of sustained silent reading article, he began with 305 studies. He narrowed those down to 307, narrowed them again to 43. Then actually again before he did his analysis over 3 decades. But because of the fact that it was over 3 decades, it was a bit hard to follow. The focus was not very narrow. But what I did take from it, he did narrow his findings down to, his research and his sort of methods down to 2 contextual features. He was interested in the duration of treatment, less than or more than 6 months in regard to the SSR, and also the grade level. He found that above 4th grade, students become more engaged in other activities, leisure activities that he calls them, so he separates his grade level research before 3rd grade and after 4th grade. Needless to say, this article provided me with limited info. He does, however, note evidence that reading attitude is not associated with the length of treatment, and also that the lower grades benefited much more from SSR. So again, I was led to find Valerie Lee's article because this one was a little bit difficult to understand, and it really didn't provide a whole lot of information that I needed. Valerie Lee was successful at implementing an SSR program with her high school juniors. Here's some facts here. Less than 1/3 of 13-year-olds are daily readers. The percentage of 17-year-olds who read nothing at all for pleasure has doubled over a 20-year period. I found those facts interesting. She found that her early attempts, like mine at SSR, were a dismal failure due to limited info about creating a meaningful program. Her modeling, which I can relate to, definitely was replaced by redirecting misbehavior. She modified her program after reading Pilgrim's The SSR Handbook, and that is what she quotes frequently throughout her article, which was really helpful. That's how I came to know those 8 components. By the end of the first semester with her high school juniors, her students were begging for more SSR. They learned to pursue texts related to their interests. She did find, however, that for some students, more than a year of SSR would need to be implemented, and this contradicted what Yoon had said about time not really being a factor, so that was a question I still had. SSR is often criticized for lack of guidance, feedback, and instruction, but guidance and feedback, according to Lee, are an integral part of successful SSR programs, so this was new to me. Finally, to sum it all up, I learned that I thought this was rather interesting. A lack of teacher training is what often contributes to the failure of these SSR programs, which I can definitely relate to. I had seen it as a much simpler process. Also, the breakdown of these 8 essential components was very helpful. The teacher component and teacher encouragement is extremely important. Also, the length of treatment seems to be unclear, so that's something that I'm still questioning and hope to do some more research. And finally, the fact that it's really important in regard to SSR to stay positive because the development of attitude towards reading evolves quite slowly. So, final questions. Again, I'm still eager to read more about this follow-up component because I'm afraid that this will deter some of my students from really fully engaging in this SSR process. And also, that question of the length of implementation being a crucial variable, So, again, I'm Christina Finnegan. That is my literacy inquiry on trying to determine if an SSR program will help to encourage reading motivation in my classroom. Thank you.